Alright, looks like it's recording. Hopefully I have an audio capture device that works. I tried to use my wireless a little bit earlier. Don't have it set up. So we'll just get this started. Usually this is just the part in time where I do a stream of consciousness and it's just kind of all messed up. But I just wanted to show a little bit of the progress. Of course, the background is provided by a guy that was doing some, I'm sorry I forgot your name, some tests in Blender 3D, so I found these on the forums and I downloaded a couple of them because I thought they were kind of neat. So good job, man. Um, Basically, what I'm going to be talking about is the progress of where I'm at so far with the scare floor, and I don't even know if I have the latest scare floor progress. I may have gotten rid of that one. So let's bring this over here. This is not quite where I'm at. Actually, I have a couple more things in here, like a couple doors hanging up here, and did some extra modeling. And so now it's time to do the little nitpicky things of going in and populating this area with a bunch of stuff that would be sitting on a desk. And this stuff usually takes a long time. And then I have to add clocks and stuff like that down here. I think I'm going to save the clocks for a little bit later. Maybe I'll show you how I'm going to go about doing it. Uh, for people who have a lot more skill than I do, you're probably going to be slapping your faces in disbelief at how I go about doing things, but then again, it works for me and it gets results like this. So, where are we at? It's populating these desks. So, we're going to just bring up that dreaded terminal here. Okay, so this is where we at with the scare floor. And as a side note, how I brought this stuff up, let's go over here. Boom. I had modeled these things up here to hang the doors up along the rail. So that's what I was doing over the last night or so. So I finished those up and I did a couple other things. And now we need to populate some of the desks, like down here. And since these are instances, it's going to show me every single desk. I don't necessarily need to look at, but you know, there's scattered crap all over these things and folders and stuff. Um, Basically, we're looking at something kind of like this. This is from the video game Kingdom Hearts 3, I believe. So it kind of gives me a little bit more reference to work with. I'm not really sure how accurate their modeling is to the movie, but it may be very accurate. The scare floor itself looks like this. So there might be a little bit more detail within these things. I don't even know why that's all blurry like that. So it should be big enough to display. But you know, we had to populate all this stuff on here. And sometimes we need to make these things variable. We're not going to see this side from where my shot is because my shot would be from the doorway here looking down this way. There are some other little subtle details that we need to put in things. Um, you know, that's just how it is. So I keep this kind of as a reference. Maybe I'll pull it to the side and see what's going on there. But yeah, they have to be up on here. So, well, I don't want to do that over there. So we're not going to make any changes. I had some recent files that I did. I called this a Slurpee Cup. So the Slurpee Cup looks like this. And I don't know what's going on with this particular model because when I try to render things out with it, the processor doesn't want to render, but the GPU does. It's kind of annoying. Um, but just your simple Slurpee cup, it still needs some texturing on the other side here. It looks like I have some face intersection down on the bottom that I had to fix, which isn't too hard. So maybe I could do that now, since I see a problem. We'll just isolate that really quick. And then, I'm not sure how that happened. So I'm going to find out where they are. There they are. Nope, not those. Not those. Not those. Alright, so this is how we'll do it. that junk there. And then I think I'll just simply... I don't know, I think I want to bring the inside up. So I'm hoping that that's the inside. You never know sometimes. It can be a pain in the butt. Just leaving some things behind. No. Well, yeah, that's it. So maybe we'll do it like that and see if that corrects some of our stuff. Kind of looks like it. I kind of have some Z fighting going on. Yeah, that's it. And I corrected that. Okay, so anyway, now that we corrected that, it's very hard for this to render this particular piece here because for some reason when roughness is activated, I'm getting some weird render artifacts and stuff like that. So I think for the time being, if I want to save myself some problems, gotta get out of isolation mode here. Come over here, take a look. What do I have for roughness? Very, very little roughness. So I'm not really sure what's going on with it. Maybe not enough light paths. But what I was having a problem with here recently was that in this particular scene, and I'm not sure why it's doing this, when I try to come here and render the scene, the CPU gets hung up. And this is just the GPU part of it, like rendering. There's absolutely nothing to render here. So I don't know what's really going on with it. If I started it in the middle like a traditional Blender render where it spirals out, those things would just hang here forever and not be able to calculate anything. So I am not sure what exactly is going on. But anyway, it got so hung up at one point in time that I couldn't even cancel the render. It was strange. So now that we got that kind of figured out for us, and we can copy this in a couple different places, maybe have 2 or 3 of them. You know, I didn't have a bend in the straw because I don't think they do. Usually, when last time I was in a 7-Eleven was in Chicago years ago, the straw was straight, so I'm just going to leave it straight, and then I'll figure out a label to put on this thing a little bit later. But until then, that asset is finished, scaled, and where it needs to be. We'll double check the scale, make sure that the scale is 1, because if you're having your scale that's off, it will actually affect the render, how that's calculated, and any other transforms that you do. And stuff like that, and modifiers that are applied to it, and sometimes the stuff that you're doing in editing mode, so you want this to always read 1. So apply that scale. The other thing is, let's see here, let's open another one. And so what I was working on here were a folder to add, and I did add some thickness to the pages, and I'm not sure if I really want to do that for this particular one, because what happens is that you end up with a lot of polygons left over. And so just to put the bends in the corners of the pages where they're leaning over something like that, I had to subdivide it a little bit, and I moved everything down. And I only added the divisions, you know, like a loop cut, you know, wherever I actually needed it to create the effect, so that I won't create too much geometry. And what I mean by that is when we go into wireframe mode, these little red lines are how much more it is subdivided. And so if we even do this further, let's just do this one because that one's actually subdivided. We'll hide everything else. Those little red lines in there are how many times it's subdivided. So every time you add another little line in here, it subdivides a little bit more. Technically, it's going to render at this quality, so there's a lot more geometry for each sheet rather than just being a flat plane. But the reason why I gave it thickness is if I were to add anything to it, stacking up hundreds of papers that have no thickness to it can be kind of tedious and hard. I add some thickness to it also because if I wanted something printed on one side of the paper, it would only print on one side of the paper. Now I could do it nodally so that it forgets this side when I project it. I'm a little too lazy to do that. If you just have one surface that it's projecting onto, then the texture actually projects all the way through to the other side. And then you have a mirror image of whatever you're projecting to it. Now, are these things in the folders requiring anything? I don't think they're at an angle that I'm going to see anything. So maybe not. So the sheets of paper would be fine. Um, so just to have a little look here, this is how many subdivisions are on there. So it adds up a little bit, right? So we'll unhide everything else. And this is like our stack of paper within the folders. Get rid of the annoying wireframe overlay. Let's not isolate that anymore. I don't have any textures with this, but this is not the only folder that I'm going to make. So I had to make another folder, and I think that I want to stack maybe 2 or 3 on top of one another, make it look like they're really busy. Right now how it renders out is like this, so at a distance you probably won't notice too much there. Even if I had a flat plane, which I may do for some of these other ones, it will still render the other side. And if I were to apply some sort of texture on top of it, it would show to the other side, and it doesn't really matter. And it kind of looks tacky with that much thickness on there. I even scaled it down, but at a distance, I'm not going to really see that much. And, Monsters Inc. is kind of cartoonish, but for all the rest of the papers that are hanging up, let's say on the bulletin board and stuff, I think I'm just going to leave them as a single plane or subdivided. Or, I don't know, I can play with it right now. So, let's try to play with this just a little bit. So we'll duplicate that along the X. We'll get ourselves a new one here. And then I'm just going to isolate that because I want to work with that. So one of the things that I can do is come in here. And you'll notice that I actually applied a bevel because the bevel, these little lines here, and they're kind of overlapping. They shouldn't be overlapping, but they are. Is defining that shape really well. So if I wanted to, and I wanted to start over, let's see where there is something that's a little bit relatively straight, so I don't have to really work too hard at reorienting everything. And I think what I want is a non-subdivided one, so I think that one will do. So we'll just kind of get rid of everything else. I could have just remodeled it, but some of the work is already done anyway. So we're left with this one plane, and what I mean by the work is already done, I don't have to rebevel this or re-subdivide and stuff. So no, I don't want that one. It's not going all the way around. So you want to play the hard way. Okay, and that's fine with me. So of course, don't select everything all the way through. I mean, why would you do that? Because nobody would want to do that. And so if I get rid of these layers, I should be left with just a flat plane. Alright. No, I'm not left with a flat plane. There is still something around there. I know there is. There's got to be. Well, let's click on one of these little things here, face orientation, and see what happens. Yeah, it looks correct. Let's go like this. Oh yeah. Okay, so the back face culling only works with this. So this is what happens. Um, since a plane is defined as a two-dimensional object, it only has one surface in length and width. And so when you do some back face culling, the back face technically doesn't exist. But when you render it, it'll render it as double-sided. And the problem is um, it comes when you texture this thing. And so when I come over here and I don't know, let's just add something that's something crazy. I'll just go into the shading tab because sometimes that works a little bit better. If I add something into the color and I want to make it like a texture, and it could be a printed sheet of anything like that, it doesn't really matter. But if I go with an image texture and then I open something like, oh, where could I go? Let's see here. What can I put on there? I don't know. Maybe I can put a paper texture on there. Let's see what these are. All right, just for the heck of it, we're gonna be maybe I'll give a coffee stained piece here. Okay. So if I bring that in here and I put it in the base color, you can see that it's on both sides. Okay. So this is the issue that you'll have when you have geometry that is like, I'm just using a simple projection, and there are sometimes an automatic UP, so that's a direction of this way U and then V, not to be confused with the X and Y in space, but this flat plane projects all the way through. Okay, and I can use a certain trick by telling it that only certain rays are seen, but this sometimes is not what you want. Right? A lot of times it's not what you want. But I like the reduction in polygons. If I were, let's, I'm just going to go back to the modeling. I just want to get used to, you know, I'm going to put this over here, and then we're going to extrude this down right about there. Not exactly the appropriate way to do that, but it'll give you an idea of what's going on. It's still wrapped around, however, if I were to, say, put another one in here and go, oh, I don't know, I can take this one and this one, and I can assign test 2 to that, right? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Test 2. And then I can eliminate some of that problem from the other side as long as we have yeah, it should have. It shouldn't be on the other side. Of course, I don't know if it like went through the way it was supposed to go through here. Oh no, see, that's the problem. It didn't bring all that other stuff with it. And it was supposed to. But anyway, what that is just a little bit of wrapping around and stuff. But you can assign different materials to go wherever they need to go. So if I went all of it and I assigned it Then you can see this part. If I go here and I just select this and I go assign, it's not at the edges because I don't have any supporting edges here. But it should be just on one side. So let's see if my theory works. And it does a little bit. And we can and consequently, if you're having problems with your surfaces on subdivided objects, that's why, is because that subdivision is pinched in. You need to get that influence out to the edges, and sometimes that's the edge loops. And so that's what was happening here because no edge loops were copied over. But that's the trick of keeping things on one side. Otherwise, it projects all the way through stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. We'll get rid of that one. And then, what do you mean? Oh, whatever. You can remove any material slot I tell you to. And so then that's what we end up with over here. And I don't know why those bevels didn't come through because they're right there. So anyway, that's how we can do it. And so like I can keep these subdivided like this. So let's not isolate this anymore. I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring that one over because I need another folder. And we'll bring that one down here and grab that probably right about there. Now I don't really like using the transform gizmo because for some reason it's been really cheesy and its area of influence is like, look at how far away that is. Look at that. Look at that. If I have a point like right next to it, I can't select anything. So I have to figure out how to adjust that area of influence because I need it to be like almost spot on before it moves. But anyway, and it disappears anyway when I do that. And I shouldn't have done it that way, but that's okay, because what we'll do is we'll just take everything and we'll join everything together in a little bit. So I have all these little things stacked in here, all these pieces of paper. Now I kind of want to make the folder, you know, a little bit thinner. So I think I'll just go here and do this like that. And I'll bring it down, maybe right there, because we like a little bit of variation in the thickness of things. And then I'll select all these. Why is that flipped? The other one isn't flipped, but you know, whatever. Bring those there. And then some of these we can go ahead and move around however we want. So I'm going to do this really quick and isolate this so that other junk's out of the way. And the cat is begging me for a, I think a beat down, I'm not really sure. Dexter, you just chill. So we're gonna go, and I don't really care if they're not leafed together very well. Maybe we'll just take this, and we'll go back. It seems to be a little bit easier to do some of this stuff in object mode. I got stuff up there. Last time I did it in edit mode, so I can't really isolate things very well in edit mode sometimes. And so then we're going to add, oh, I don't know, is this file going to be clean? I don't know. Let's do this. Let's kind of get that out of the way a little bit. Some disheveledness here. Not too much. You know, some people a little bit more cleanly than others. And so take this. And so this is the point in time where we start doing our little corners. And so I put it where I think it's going to be influenced the most. And try not to intersect anything else. And so you can get a believable look rather quickly. And I think, you know what, maybe instead we'll leave that one like that. And we'll just bring the whole thing down a little bit. Paper's got a bit of tension across the surface, so it's not going to come down quite a bit, you know, all that far. But it gives it just a little bit of a treatment where it gives the illusion that something is going on there. And then maybe I might go back to this thing and figure out how to get this down. So for me to see everything, I need to go in a wireframe. Bring that down. Bring this over and maybe in, because maybe it doesn't fold that much. I don't know, maybe somebody tweaked this side a little bit. You know, maybe it's fatter down there, who knows, right? And then I'm going to take this part here, if I can select it. I'm going to hide it, and I'm going to take all these, and then we're going to select one of these to be an active one, and Control J, and then that joins everything together. And then we bring everything back that we've hidden, come out of isolation mode, and now we have two. I don't want that. We have two. Maybe I don't need the lights and camera. Folders. And so when you look at it this way, there isn't really much difference. This one is thicker. This one is obviously a little bit thinner. Right? But they both serve their purpose. I'm saying that there's something in there. And then I think what would happen is that I need another one. So we'll take a look at that. Let me see how far this recording is. 28 minutes already, jeez. I'm long-winded. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and we'll move this over here, and I think I'm going to use the same set. I'll move this over here. See how this works. And then we will stay somewhat organized. By labeling certain things. Come on. Alright. We'll say that maybe that was there. since I've been doing it with all these other ones here. I think we'll just do that with this one here. And this should give us enough variation to live with. Okay. So we have some different looking files here. Some of them one disheveled more than another one, but there's some pieces hanging out, and we have some bends, and they're pretty normal. But so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what we did with this. And I labeled it folder 1, and then we have all these other things here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the names to these things and put them in their own groups, because it's going to come in handy a little bit later. I'm using F2. Let's change this one. So then now what I'm going to do is create some different collections. And out of this collection, maybe, oh yeah, why not? So I'll go with and I'll just keep it one word. Folder set 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. And so we'll take, let's see here, we'll take this and we'll move that to folder set 1. Move that to folder set 2. And move that to folder set 3. And so now I have everything set up to where they need to be, so that when we bring things into the other scene, then what I'm going to bring in is the collections. So if I bring in the collections under the proper collection in the larger scene, then these will show up as different sets. And then what I can do from there is I can just copy them, or I can make instances of each one of these things and copy them over. I'll probably, if this still appends the way it used to, then I'll probably put some textures on these things, and then it will refer back to this original file as I append the other one, and then we can start putting these on the desks. So how I would technically do that is that we would go back over to our recent scare floor, and then when you want to get this in here, let's see where it is. If I bring it in here and I go file append, ooh, come on now, and then I have this folder sets, I can go in here, I can look at the collections, I can bring in the folder set 1, 2, and 3, and that should dump it in right around there. And so now I have some folders to place wherever I want. Okay. And then what I can do is I can make instances out of these things. So they're copies, and then I can copy them down wherever I want. And then it does add geometry count down here. But all those little instances, just like what these are kind of, are referring back to the one main thing. So if I were to look at the desk, that's the only one that actually exists. Okay? And so all the rest of them are copies of this. So any changes that I make to this one propagate down to everything else. Same thing with the doors. Anything that I make a change to this door here propagates down to everything else. And so that's going to kind of bite me in the butt in a little bit because each one of these doors are supposed to be different. But for right now, it's working out pretty well. And then I'll probably take them out of the collection set, the new doors that I drop in here. But other than that, that's what I mean by instancing. It's not actually there per se, even though you can see it. It's just referencing one thing and then repeating that along the lines. But I think I got my scale right for this stuff. And these things aren't really whatever. Um, they seem to be somewhat independent of one another. So maybe this, now that I have a scale with something, maybe this shelf here needs to be a little bit wider. So I can come up here, isolate this thing, go like that, get out of that isolation, and then every one of those took on the same property. And now, at least, my folder will fit. Anywhere that I want here. I can even kind of copy it around like that, like somebody just threw it up there. So that's how I'm going to populate the scene. Is with stuff like that, we can randomly throw some of these around, and your eye is looking at the overall scene, usually not the details. So some of the details don't need to be that detailed. Anyway, that's how we're going to go about doing the populating of the little knickknacks and stuff like that all over the place, the little nerdies. So I don't know if this was informative. Kind of went a little bit long. Showed you a few different things. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you.